guys, hope you're well. This here is the Sony ZV-1. Well, actually it's not. This is quite clearly just my hand. I'm filming on the Sony ZV-1 and I probably should have thought this through a bit more. One sec, I'm going to switch the cameras. So here is the Sony ZV-1. Now it creates high quality footage, it's small, it's compact and it's light, which makes it a great camera for your everyday vlogger. But this is also a great option as a main camera to use in your YouTube studio. And today I thought I'd show you how I use it in my studio to get great looking results. If you want to check out my full review of the ZV-1, I'll put a link to that video down below. I'm going to show you the settings and techniques I use with this camera in just a minute, but before I do that, I want to point out that you can't just get a good camera, point it at yourself and expect good results. This YouTube channel is going to be epic. Your surroundings, your lighting and your audio are just as important as the camera itself. Take time to plan the layout of your studio. Try shooting from different angles and try out plenty of different lighting positions. Correct lighting can make a huge difference to your shot. You want soft lighting so you don't get any harsh shadows. And the best way to do this is by using some sort of diffusion like a softbox. I'll put some links below to the lighting setup that I use, so feel free to check that out if you want to. So once you're happy with the final look of the shot, that's when you can start thinking about the camera settings. Okay, so first of all, let's put the camera into full manual mode. We don't want the camera adjusting anything during the shot. We want everything to stay exactly how we want it. So next, we want to select either 1080 or 4K. This is a personal preference. If you want smaller files that are easier to work with, then go with 1080. If you want that extra bit of quality and don't mind larger files, go with 4K. Remember though that with any small camera like this, filming in 4K can cause it to overheat. And for that reason, Sony have a 5-minute recording limit set as standard. You can turn this off in the settings, but if you're going to be filming for long periods of time, then to be safe, you might want to go with 1080. Personally, I film in 4K because I just like to be able to cut into shots like this while keeping the image looking sharp. But bear in mind that most people watch YouTube videos in 1080, so if you'd rather stick to that, that's fine. Next up, we want to select our frame rate. Now to achieve that natural look that we're used to seeing in movies, we need to select 24 frames per second here. So now that we have that all set, we need to set our exposure. There's something called the 180-degree shutter rule, and I won't bore you with the details, but basically, in order to get a natural amount of motion blur in our images, we want to set our shutter speed to twice the frame rate. So because we've used 24 frames per second, we need to use 1/48th of a second shutter speed. But that's not an option, so we go to the closest number possible, which is a 50th of a second. Okay, so now we need to set our aperture. Now, the lower the number, the wider the aperture and the more blurred our background is going to be. In most cases, we want the aperture as wide as possible, as it gives a more professional look. So let's go ahead and set that to 1.8. If we're zoomed in a bit, then we can't go down to a 1.8, but basically you want to set this as low as the camera will allow. So next up, we need to set the ISO. This is the sensitivity level of the camera's sensor. The higher the number, the brighter the image, but setting this too high will result in your image becoming grainy. So 100 is the lowest setting, and from here we can start moving up through the ISO range. If it starts to get too high above 100, then we're going to need to physically add more light in our studio, so we can bring this number down. Ideally, when the exposure looks correct, you want this number to be as close to 100 as possible. If the 100 starts flashing, it means the scene is too bright and we need to physically remove or turn down some of the lights. So now that's done, we need to set the white balance. This will move the colours either into the red spectrum or the blue spectrum, and your colours look correct in different lighting conditions. You can leave it on auto white balance, but the problem here is if the camera decides to change the white balance during the shot, it will look terrible on your video, so it is best to set the white balance manually. Now you can either set your own figure and judge it by eye, or you can do it the correct way using a white surface. You can use almost any plain white non-reflective surface, but I like to use this white balancing sheet. Now, I'm not going to lie, this got quite dirty in the car. I'm not really sure how, but it did. Now, it might sound a bit confusing, but it's got a white side and then it's got a grey side, and you can use either. And some people think that the results from using the grey side are more accurate. So to be honest, this is the side that I do tend to use. So it's quite simple. We just come down to a custom white balance slot. You select it. Hold the white balance sheet in front of the camera so that it takes up a large part of the screen, and then you press set. It's as simple as that. Just don't take it in the car and let it get scuff marks all over it. Now, there's one unique feature on the ZV-1 that I wanted to mention here because it could be really valuable depending on the type of content you're filming. There's a button you can press that turns on the product showcase mode, and this is for anyone who needs to hold up a product to the camera to show the audience. It's amazing. Normally, when you hold an item up close to the lens, the camera will ignore it and it just keeps the focus on your face. So that's why you sometimes see YouTubers struggling to get the focus on items. But hold that thought. So I've now activated product showcase mode, and this is an amazing feature. When you hold items up in front of the lens, it focuses on it. When you take it back down, the focus returns to your face. This is a game changer. So that's it as far as the camera settings are concerned. But before you're ready to shoot, you need to take care of one more important thing, and that's the audio. So the audio that comes straight from the ZV-1 is actually quite impressive for a compact camera, and in most situations it's more than enough. But that will depend on a couple of factors, and number one is just the acoustics of the room itself. So as I come from outside to inside, navigated the step seamlessly, you probably did notice a difference. And then I'll just head into the bathroom, because obviously this is tiled, it will make a kind of difference again. And then,
you're right, Amy.
What are you doing?
What does it look like I'm doing? Pass me the toilet roll here.
Oh, how do I turn this off? And number two, the distance between yourself and the microphone. For example, right now, the mic is pretty close to me. And this is what it sounds like when the mic is much further away. And as you can tell, it's definitely worse. It's picking up more of the kind of room tone and reverb. It's so far away. Now, because audio quality is such an important part of your content, in a studio environment, you're going to want to take advantage of the fact that the ZV-1 has an external mic input. Now, as I've said, the audio straight from this camera is actually quite impressive, but nothing will compare to using a professional external microphone. And not only will the sound quality improve, but you can now position the mic as close to yourself as you can get it without it appearing in the shot. So in this setup, I'm using a Rode Video Mic NTG, just a few inches above my head, and it's mounted to a boom pole. It's a brilliant mic, and if you want top quality, this is definitely one to look at. This is now the audio from the Rode Video Micro, and it also does a great job. So if you want a more budget option, this would be the one to go for. I'll stick a link down below so that you can check them both out. Another option would be to use a lav mic. Now, the advantage of a lav mic is that you can get them very close to your mouth, so this can sound good in pretty much any room. But the disadvantage is they don't look particularly nice. I mean, you can get smaller ones than this, but personally, I still don't really like the look of them. And not only that, but they do restrict your movement. And if you're not careful, you can brush past them in the wrong way. And that can kind of ruin your audio. I also feel a bit tethered, a bit like a dog waiting for their owner outside a shop. I don't know, personal preference. So if possible, I actually do prefer the shotgun mic on a boom pole. Ta-da! This is the final result. So I'm now filming on the Sony ZV-1, and I've followed all of the instructions that I've kind of walked and talked you through. So I've got my lighting in place, I've got the Rode NTG above my head on a boom pole, and all of the camera settings are as I've described. And actually, given that the rest of this video was filmed on a camera that cost 4 times as much as the ZV-1, I think the results are really impressive. If you do want to check out my full review of the Sony ZV-1, I'll also link that in the description below. And if you found this helpful, give me a thumbs up. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.